So today's video, we are going to teach you some really cool tips and tricks for installing hardwood flooring in your home. So by and large, the most common type of flooring that is in the world today is hardwood flooring. And I know that in North America, we tend to try to move away from that a lot recently. There are a lot of products on the market, especially for the DIY crowd. You know, you got your laminate floors, which was supposed to be a cost-effective option instead of hardwood if you were changing out carpet, for instance. And that was true to a certain extent, but it doesn't have the lifespan that hardwood has. And then we have vinyl plank and sheet vinyl flooring. We have carpeting. We have cork flooring. They've come out with bamboo. But listen, let's just get back to the basics. When you break it all down, no matter what kind of flooring you're talking about, your cost per square foot is really the first thing you start to think about. So aside from performance, the cost is the biggest issue, right? Hardwood flooring runs $6, $7 a square foot. Well, there's a lot of products out there now that are competing with that price point that aren't even wood. So engineered hardwood is about the same price. There are a lot of laminate products out there that are luxury products, right? And they're all getting up in the $5, $6 range. So when it comes down to it, a high quality product, whether it's wood or vinyl or laminate, is going to be about the same price for install. And then one of the benefits of this is it doesn't require any kind of a subfloor material. So you factor that into your cost, you end up with a pretty cost-effective piece of flooring, and it comes pre-finished. So you have the ability to pick whatever color you like, and you also have this option. 10, 15, 20 years from now, you want to change the color, sand it down, and you can refinish the floor on site. And that's not something that no other kind of flooring product has the flexibility to do, which is to be renewed on site. So this is a floor that will be here 100 years from now unless somebody decides to rip it out for no apparent reason. So at the end of the day, hardwood flooring I think is still your best option unless it's in a wet area. But if you're a homeowner and you want to do a DIY hardwood floor, we're going to show you all the tips and tricks today so that you're not going to be intimidated by doing something that would have traditionally be called carpentry. And this is just flooring installation. Yes, you need a couple carpentry tools, but it's not all that tricky. And you'll see when we get into this that you too can do this at home and you can rent the tools to get it done. It is a perfect DIY project that you can tackle in a weekend and still have plenty of time to put your furniture back in order before you get busy with the next week. So like any flooring installation, the key is in the preparation. So before we can put the new hardwood down, we got to rip up the old floor. And in this case, that means sheet vinyl, and it has got to go. This stuff is just butt ugly. And it is just that easy. Special note, be very careful. These staples are extremely sharp. I would suggest having a roll of electrical tape on hand so when you pierce your hand, you can stop the blood. Because when you poke yourself with one of these bad boys, it's a deep cut. Gonna put a weak spot in it. When you're installing flooring, your subfloor doesn't need to go right to the drywall. Hell, it doesn't even have to go right up to the baseboard. You're always gonna put flooring on it. Feel free to install your subfloor a little bit shy of the end wall here. Man, that is just frustrating. I mean, if you're gonna measure and cut, make it a little smaller than you need. It's not necessary to go put tight into the wall. It just drives you nuts the next time you're gonna try to change it. Oh yeah, that was really installed to last. Great adhesion. Who are you kidding with that? See, it's supposed to be that easy. Be careful when you're on the side lifting the floor. If you slip and it's under pressure, it'll slap you. That'll put a whole row of holes in the leg. So when you're doing hardwood floor, it's about the same approach to installing as any other type of flooring. You want to have a clean surface, you want to have it prepped, you want to sweep it and vacuum. Make sure you vacuum, and the reason I love vacuuming is because it's kind of the last opportunity to bump into something on the floor, and it'll tell you if you have a staple sticking out or something like that. Now, this type of flooring, it's tongue and groove construction, okay? That's an end cut. I don't like that. What we're gonna do is just discuss real quick how to lay this out. I mean, you've got to have some sort of reasonable approach to the situation, correct? So here's what we're gonna need to get started. Again, you want to know the end from the beginning. So one of the fancier ways you can do it is you can buy one of these wooden grates that's designed with the tongue and groove in mind, and you put that over top of your hole and you finish your floor right into it, okay? Now in this particular situation, we are coming up to an existing hardwood floor. That floor was started with a full board with the groove exposed, which is lovely because our wood has got a tongue on one side. And so our nailing direction will be like this, and that'll slide right into it. So what I want to do, because I'm in a hallway, and even if it was a larger room, because I'm going to be going this direction, and I'm going this direction just because of the simplicity of a hallway, when you run along the long wall, is really difficult to get a straight line. And it's almost impossible to stitch into the existing flooring unless I was to come straight off of it like this. But the truth is the wood that we're installing is a little different tone. They don't make that color anymore. So one of the ways we're going to help hide that is by going in a different grain, because wood in a different grain, even when it's the same color, looks different. So this will help it to blend. So what we want to do is just line up a few pieces, all right? Because I don't want to start my floor in the back of the closet and work this way. It'll be impossible to have this flooring square to that flooring. And I want this nice and square so that all of my pieces are fit up nice and tight against that other floor. And I don't want to have these occasional gaps that open up. So these gaps are really dramatic, but the more square you are, the better that looks. So we don't want to even be half a degree off of the angle. And the way we do this, there we go, that's perfect, is I want to have my full piece into the side of this register, which is somewhat flexible. I mean, it can move around a little bit, right? And I want to have these square to this, so I want to start in this area. But if I start in the middle of the floor, how am I going to go this way? Because the way that the nailing system works is the hardwood nailer, which is going to be our air tool of the day, sits on the floor, right on the edge here, and it fires a nail on an angle through that tongue and into the floor. Okay? So in order to set this up so that I can be really pretty here, perfectly square here, I want to just squeeze all these together. All right? Nice. What I'm going to do is I'm taking my square, putting it in the groove. Okay? That'll help keep it nice and square. And I'm going to run it up against this wood until it's all nice and perfectly square. All right? It doesn't get any more square than this. Right there. That's my spot. I'm going to take this one piece of wood. All right? Just confirm it. I'm loving the way that closes up. I'm loving everything about this. So there's my start. I'm just going to pencil that in for now. Now, the way I'm going to start my floor is I am going to actually screw down a piece of wood here. And I'm going to start nailing everything inverted going into the closet so that I can fill from a square position here to the other floor, nailing in the right direction. And then when I come back, I'm going to take this little piece of wood here. I'm going to demonstrate how this works. When I come back from nailing to that wall, I'm going to take this piece of wood and I'm going to slip it into the groove like that and turn it around and then butt into the existing nailed down flooring, and then start nailing the other direction to the other end of the hall. This is how you can start in the middle of the room. And this is so key. When you're coming up against a finished wood, you want to start where this is. So if you're doing a bedroom and your bedroom door is near the end wall, but there's a closet off of that, you don't want to start on the far wall and work your way out of the room, because when you get to the door, it's a transition nightmare. Take the few minutes it takes, set things up, square off to existing hardwood flooring, buy a couple slip tongues. These things are pre-made. They're like $3 each. You can't go wrong. And you put those in and you can reverse the direction of the wood. So I can start square, nailing the proper direction into the end of the closet, and then I can come out here, slip tongue, turn it around, and then finish all the way to the other end of the wall. That way your joints and your seams are all going to be perfect. I mean, on the money perfect. And take the time to measure off with the register, because now I don't have any ugly cuts. I can put all of that in with full pieces of wood, and this is going to be perfect. Now these registers are pre-designed to be exactly the same thickness of the piece of wood from corner to corner. So if I can set this up where my register will start right off the tongue, then I'll finish right off the piece of wood with no cuts. So the only cut you have to do is on your saw is the end cut, and that's in behind here. All of this this can all be full pieces of wood, right? Take your variation of sizes, and when I'm nailing my floor in, I can actually coming right in here like this and make everything perfectly tight. And that's how you get a perfect installation. There, that's the joist line there. So now we have something that's incredibly strong. So quick recap here before we get started, because we want to remove everything out of the area that we're not going to be using. So once we have the job set up, you really want to reduce the number of tools you're using to just your nailer and just your hammer, because there's almost no need for anything else in the room other than a marker. And I always suggest using a black marker to make marks on wood, because you will not see a pencil. Now we have measured off from our grate. We've squared off to our existing flooring. We made a line. We installed this piece of plywood onto that line. And the idea behind that is when we're installing our floor, their nails are driven this way, the hammer action is this way, but this is screwed right into the floor joist. So this floor is not going to be sliding and gapping and opening up while we build. And that's why this is here. We want to leave this in place. The slip tongue is in that wood there so that it will receive this, and that'll keep the end from lifting and moving and separating and creating a trip hazard over time, which is going to be perfect. The only thing left to do, and I hate to do this, but we're going to need a little bit of construction adhesive. Now, as a rule, I try not to use this product in my house during finished installations, because this stuff doesn't come out. And if you make a mistake with this, you've made a mistake that's going to last for the rest of your life. If you don't clean it up within the first 5 minutes of making a mess, this does not come off with any kind of solvent. The PL construction adhesives, there's different varieties. There's a 200, 400 series, but the PL Premium does not clean up. So beware of that. Be very particular when you put this down. And the reason I'm gluing this one in place is because this is where I'm going to be changing direction. And when I change direction, I'm going to have two pieces of wood back to back, and there's no fastener here. So I don't want this to open up and be moving around. So we're going to glue this one in place. And I don't want to use any surface nails. So I'm simply going to glue that in place, and then start, when I drive this nail down, I'm going to pull the whole board flush. And when I come back around the other way, it'll be pretty much in place forever. So this is the Boss Stitch hardwood nailer. Tool rental, gotta love it. Tool rentals, you can get these things set up for 3/4 hardwood, 1/2 inch hardwood, bamboo, and engineered flooring. Those are 4 distinct different thicknesses. So they have 4 different settings for these plates that go on the bottom. Generally, the rental stores will have them a series of tools where they'll have a few of each available at any one time. And it loads from the top, real simple. just like any other staple machine that's out there. Take a couple of tracks, drop them in, and you're loaded. Boom, energized. That's simple. And the way we install, about every 6 inches you want to throw in a nail, okay? And because it's my first strip, I'm only going to nail where I've got plywood screwed down, just to make my life simple. And you want to give it a good firm shove. So I'm a big fan of every 6 to 8 inches. And really the goal here is to put the nylon plate on top of the finished wood, slide it right up against it, and set it so that it's not leaning one way or the other. That's the whole system. I am just using this motion here, okay? It's not necessary. Don't overkill it. If you hit this thing too hard, you'll end up putting dents in the front edge of your wood. So just nice and easy, okay? Just the wrist. Don't use the arm. If you start swinging with the arm, you're gonna hurt something or someone, all right? So now we've demonstrated how the nail gun works. I'm gonna demonstrate the hammer, the uses of it. You see the angle on that? The reason it's set like that is because this is what you use to move your flooring around. As long as you hold it on the ground, the part of the hammer that contacts the wood is always at the bottom of the wood, never near the finish. All right, so you can slide everything into place, close up all your gaps, tap everything in place, and then set your nailer down. This is where this gets fun. Nice, look at that perfect gap. That is how you do a joint, ladies and gentlemen. Aside from that, really the only secret that's left here is dealing with your aging. And that's a kind of a crazy concept, but what it is talking about where are the joints in the wood. You don't want to have anything that's reoccurring, like a pattern over and over and over in your floor. So if you put your wood together like this and every other board is 4 inches off, you're going to run into major problems. Now, generally speaking, hardwood flooring comes milled based on the strength and the straightness of a tree, so there's varying sizes. So you'll find that there won't be a whole lot of pieces in the box that are the same size. It's different than laminate or vinyl where everything's the same size. Everything here is different. So what I like to do is use as many of those long boards as possible to try to eliminate the need for too many little pieces. And hardwood comes in different grades, so you can actually buy them where they're all little pieces. And that's like leftover wood that's thrown in a box and sold as a hardwood floor. It looks like a really cheap puzzle when you're all done because there's nothing but joints. So if you buy quality for another couple bucks a square foot, you'll get boards that are 4, 6, 8 feet long, and that makes a beautiful floor. But now all we got to do is measure and cut. Yep, so what I've got 3 rows started. I'm gonna actually go take 1 trip to the saw and do all the cuts for this because running back and forth is your killer. This is where all your time goes. So the more running back and forth you do, the harder it is. Now here's how you measure the same kind of system. We're going this way. Take your wood, turn it around, lift it up on edge, slide it over until it touches your baseboard, and then mark. So you're actually cutting this wood on your mark just a 1/16 shy of the actual size. Okay? That gives it all that room for expansion and contraction underneath your baseboard. Okay, which is lovely. And it'll make sure that you can finish off with a really nice tight shoe mold and you don't have to use a great big thick ugly quarter round. So same thing, I'm going to turn it around, lift it up on edge, run it over till it's in contact with the baseboard. Mark that one there. That's 2 rows. And then I'm going to use this board here. Okay. Now don't be concerned. I'm going to be cutting and using this groove part, and I'm going to be left with a clean cut. So I can't use that at the door, but I can use a clean cut to start a row anywhere else along the wall. So I'll actually set that piece aside and use it later. You don't want to have hardly any waste here. So whenever you're making an offcut, try to keep it to less than 4 inches if possible. Feel free to look through the box and get the perfect fit. Because we're running a little behind today with the project. So I'm going to eat while I work. Now, It's probably a bad one to show it on, but when you're installing your end pieces, just remember that when you have this angle, the distance from here to here is longer than from here to here. So set it like this, hold this wood tight on this corner, and then pull this side in. And it actually is slowly pushing the wood back until it's a perfect fit. And you'll always get a nice perfect fit when you do it that way. So just to make mention, the machine makes a very distinctive sound when it's out of staples. It takes a little practice to get used to hearing it. So my suggestion is, if this is the first time you're laying a hardwood floor, every few rows, just pull up the track here, double check and see how your staple supply is doing. Because when you hit it, the wood will be very snug, and it does fit pretty good compression. And it makes a dent, right? And it looks like there might be a staple there. So it can be a little deceiving. And you don't want to get all the way through a whole row of flooring, start the next row, and then you hit without any staples, and then 2 rows of wood will bounce, and it'll start to open up. And that's when you'll figure out that you were doing it without staples. And I just thought I'd save you a little bit of grief. So here's how you figure out how to cut this. Because when you're done, you want to have it really tight to that wood, right? So what you do is you'll set it up like this and make your marker right on the edge, because that's where you want to cut your wood. Okay? You see that? And then you turn it around. That sets the thickness. You set it in your groove. And this is why marker is awesome, because wherever you mark, that's the thickness of a blade. So when you're working with hardwood, use your marker to determine where you want the blade to go. So you can see I've got my blade will go there and here. And then you can use a square or really good fingers. Now I'm going to line up my blade with my marker. So I'm cutting exactly where my marker is. Always get it up to full speed before you make contact with the wood, especially hardwood. You can burn your saw out if you start embedding this in too early. Now, perfect. Okay, so this is ultimately the problem. This isn't square. So it fits here. It doesn't fit here. Yeah, nice. So unfortunately that means I have to cut the entire thing because I need to slide it in. So I gotta take another saw blade off. And the way I cut this wood really is gonna tick off the safety trolls. Oh hey, quick question for safety trolls while we're at it. What's more important, wearing safety shoes so that you don't step on a nail once in a while, or not wearing safety shoes so you don't need a knee replacement when you get older? Nice. Not bad for a chop saw. Now I would probably want to say this. That's not the recommended technique for cutting a piece of hardwood, but generally speaking, I like to cheat because whenever my cut's less than 6 inches, why would I want to move the cord and set up another saw? we are approximately 1, 2, 4 rows from the wall. And this makes it really tricky. Now you'll see professional floor installations, these guys end up making marks and dents all through the drywall when they put their flooring in. Because honestly, that is really difficult to do. I can't get any closer with this machine. So now, the only way that we can go any further with a fastening system when you get this close to the wall is to put down that construction adhesive that we were talking about earlier, the PL Premium. And you can use a brad nail gun like you would use on finishing trim. Okay, so this is exactly what you're going to see in condominium apartments or applications where you're putting hardwood on concrete. Now be careful, you can't put it everywhere there's concrete. It doesn't go in basements directly on the basement because there's too much moisture transfer there. But in an apartment building, it's actually quite handy because it's conditioned space above and beneath the concrete, so there's no moisture transfer. So what we're looking at is all these boards are the ones that we cut just a little while ago. So we can actually set that in the adhesive. Sorry, I forgot I'm going to use my hammer here. And we are going to tap this to close our gaps. And we are going to attach our brad nail. Now these are 18 gauge nails, 2-inch, all right? It's probably a little longer than I need, but I don't like to walk around with too many kinds of nails. And the idea here is we're going to put the nail in the same location in that tongue as we would have right where that adhesive is. And it goes in the same every 6 inches, just like a staple. Now that nail isn't going to hold anything down over time. But what it will do, it'll hold that wood into that adhesive until the adhesive is dry. And then that floor isn't going to be opening up, moving around. If all you're using is brad nails, guaranteed that wood is going to start opening up and splitting on you. You know, you've always got this angle. You're going to have to practice a little bit so you're not nailing through the surface. Now we need one other thing here. My drill. My nail punch. And it's a perfect nail punch, and it is the Robertson drill bit that comes with my screw gun. I can set that on that nail. Here we go. You can use that technique for anywhere you find a nail sticking out. That's usually a pretty handy place to be. So in this situation, when you're getting to the door areas of your home, if you're removing flooring that exists and you're putting in hardwood, you're probably going to run a situation where your door casings are lower because you would have had carpet or laminate or vinyl. In this case, it was a vinyl floor, but then they added plywood and then tile. So we're actually, even though we're putting in a 3/4 inch thick floor, we're going to be a little thinner than the old trim. So this is going to be a gap. But this is what we call a dovetail saw. If you've never seen one before, it switches around so that you can actually set your flooring in place. Okay, put your saw on that, and then you can cut. You could cut your trims with this fine-tooth saw. And if you're working on the other side, you just push down your little spring-loaded trap door, spin it around, and now it's another side saw. So this cuts right and left hand. It only runs just a little under 20 bucks. And if you don't have an expensive power tool and you're doing flooring in your home, this kind of tool here can save you a lot of time and money and give you a real professional finish. This way, once you've got that cut, all your flooring can slide underneath your trim, okay? And then you won't have a big ugly gap. It seems odd, but now I've taught you every technique you know to hardwood the entire room. How to start a nice transition, how to get underneath your trim, how to butt up and how to make your cuts, how to close it and nail it and glue it and pin nail it, how to finish up against the wall. The only thing we haven't talked about now is how to finish up around that heat grate. So we're gonna just do this. We're gonna change direction now so that you get the entire experience in one short little video and you don't have to hang around for the next 2 hours watching me do the same thing over and over and over again. Wow, beautiful. Now the advantage here is that when you're working with this flooring, it's nice to always have your hose coming from behind you. You're not tripping over it. We have the tongue here now, which fits into the groove of the old floor. Look what happens here. Like there's ridges and gaps. There's no way to close that nice and tight. Okay, and this is why We also want to consider our Hing, but we want to get our PL Premium in here now. And just to try to help keep things clean, I'm only going to glue the size of each board at one time. And like with any fine-tooth saw, it's more about the speed than the pressure. Okay, you have the option if you want to glue this in, but honestly, if both of these pieces of wood are glued to the floor, there's no need to have this tongue glued in. But if you want to, you could just lay it in the glue for a second, like that, and then stick it in. Now we have a transition. I just take my board, rest it in place, go back to our hammer, and now we've turned the wood in the opposite direction. There we go. Now remember I was talking about the angle of this? See how when we're changing boards in a different direction here, I'm finishing with my groove? When I set this on the floor and make contact with the wood, you see the gap at the top? I'm not actually contacting the finish because I have this on the ground. So I can hit that even standing up. I can slide it in and close it up nice and tight. And because the rest of this floor is already nailed in, it's not going to be moving around on me. So I was getting a little too comfortable and I never hit this one hard enough. My staple's sticking out. So now my piece of wood, it's not going to be able to close. Got to get that recess, so steal that drill bit again and hit it near the outside. Okay, you are not going to be able to drive it on an angle, so don't even attempt that. The goal is just to bend it down so that the wood can slide over top. So what we're going to do, we're simply going to mark this wood right here. I know, call me crazy. This is why we have a knife. Another time for another trick. Now, there's not a whole lot of strength in that wood there to fight with that knife. You see how it should just whittle it off? It's kind of like a bar of soap. I'm just taking a little bit. Okay? Now, done. One more trick. So in this situation, you might think, well, let's do what we did at the other end there. We'll cut the sliver. And that's an option. But honestly, when you're cutting that much of a sliver out of a piece of wood, what you want to do is you want to cut across, cut them down a couple of times. Because when you start here, you're more than likely going to split that piece off. And it'll twist and tear. Oh, I'm going backwards. The other option is if you can get underneath that casing, we'll get rid of some of this tongue here on the saw, so I can butt right up against the jamb. And then we'll install this wood. And what I'll do is I'll make a fabrication for this little piece on my table saw later, and I'll just drop it in place. I only need the top piece of the wood. I don't need the full length. So I'll just take my table saw out, I'll rip down a piece and drop it in with the adhesive after the fact and just set it right in there, and that'll be perfect. Right here. That's it. Installed. We're using the grooves on all the wood to hold this in place. Isn't that crazy? The one thing about these grates that's interesting is this wood is a hardwood, so this is actually strong enough to be stepped on. Not strong enough to be putting furniture on it, I don't think. If you're going to be setting furniture on it, then definitely go with a metal grate. We have got 1-inch pieces and 13-inch. It's 4, right? Okay. So I'm going to go 4 pieces at 1 inch off of this, and then here we are going to keep the tongue, because when we install this, we want this tongue to go into here to hold this register in place. So measure right to the drywall, and then mark about 1/4 inch off. Okay. One, two. Yeah, I'm just using some full boards here. 1, 2, 3, because that's the end of the box. So this is a perfect place for adhesive. Because what we're going to do here is we're going to just set them in the adhesive and pull them nice and tight. Now, I'm not going to put a brad nailer in this until I get it all installed, because I don't want to run the risk of splitting all the wood up. Now that I got it all here, I'm going to actually go through the surface. But I'm going to nail through the surface where I know my base shoe is going to cover it. Hold your gun nice and tight to the wood. If you have any gap at all in there or not enough pressure, you're going to leave the head sticking out and you're going to have a mess to clean up later. We want to be careful that we're not putting too much force into this grill and these little nails. We want to just kind of be careful here. Come straight on this, close it up with your hands. Close it up nice in the middle. These ones I've actually cut so they're all the same size. So we're going to close the far side first and then work our way towards it. There we go. That keeps everything nice and tight. And we're going to let the nails, the staples, pull this joint tight. Well, there we go. That's pretty much all I got for tips and tricks for doing hardwood flooring. Now remember, every aspect of this video you can use in different scenarios. So as long as you know how to square things and glue things and screw things and nail things and cut things and measure things, you should be okay. Just remember, when you're doing a job like this, every time you put a fastener into something, you want to be completely happy before you're committed, okay? If you don't like what's going on, stop and take a step back and just go take a little break, think through it, and make sure that you're going to be completely satisfied once you've thrown that fastener in the floor. You don't want to come back when a job's all done and go, man, I really wish I would have taken more time with something. So yes, some cuts can be really frustrating and take a lot of effort before you get them right, but having it just perfect is worth the effort, okay? Thanks for joining us on this video. I hope you've got all the information you need so that you can renovate your home now and put in some beautiful brand new hardwood floors. Remember, this is site finish. There's nothing to do after you nail it down but sweep. So if you like this kind of content, give us a thumbs up, like this video. Comments and questions, even the safety trolls, are allowed in the comments below. We answer those every day, and we love to give those kind of questions to help you with your renovation project. Remember, our goal is to help you make a fortune renovating your home. And don't forget to join us on Instagram. That's new and exciting. We got a lot of really good engagement with our viewers that way, and we're looking forward to having you there. Don't forget to check the description for tools and comments and products and all that kind of stuff, and a link to our Shopify page so you can do shopping for brands that I love, okay? I've gone out and I've found products that we can supply for you and get you a better deal. Look for discount codes in the description of our videos. Look forward to seeing you next time.